What's up, guys? Just gonna make sure everything's working here, and we'll get started. Just taking a look. Cool. Looks like we're live. Okay, so let's get started. In today's training, we are going to be talking about the idea of a budget. People hate that term. Most people don't have one. In fact, 32% of the American population have a budget, and most of them don't follow it. And there's a reason for that. So the thing is, budgeting is a bad word, right? Like we don't want a budget. We don't want to be told what to do. We don't want to be told what to stick to. So budgets are bad, in my opinion. Budgets are bad. I don't have another word for allocating resources that makes sense to people, but it's not a budget. So today we're going to be talking about the big bad budget, and we are going to create something that will give you instant clarity. So let's get started. The big bad budget, how to stop huffing and puffing, get the tools to having money on demand. What do I mean by money on demand? I mean, if you have money and you have something of value to spend it on, you will be able to spend it. You will be able to spend it, right? So if you are constantly putting out fires, if you're constantly getting things coming up that you don't expect, or you're constantly reacting to situations in your life, or you constantly feel like you have another bill to pay, this is for you, right? If you're unclear on how much you should have at the end of a week, given how much you get paid, or how much you should have at the end of a month, given what you get paid, this is for you. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not talking about how much you do have. That's another conversation. But first, we need to have this one in order to have that one. If you're afraid to invest in yourself, which is a really bad decision in my opinion, this is also for you because there's a reason you're afraid, right? If you feel like you have enough, or you think that you have enough, but you run out of money, like it just flies away, this is for you. If you're unsure what's to win and the cost of not paying bills or how to get them all handled, this is also for you. If you constantly feel like you're being taken by surprise and are mad at unexpected expenses, we are going to go over all of that here. So what is this, right? What is this that I'm talking about? This is for you. What am I talking about? I am talking about a stupid simple monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, and yearly method that allocates and not allocates, that, what's the word, informs you of all of what you should be spending. What do I mean by should be spending? I mean, you'll know how much you need to make in order to pay what you need to pay every single week, every single 2 weeks, every single month, or whatever interval you choose. Now, that's really important because if I say to you, hey, here's this thing that'll make you, $100,000. That's probably too much for this example. Here's something that'll make you $10,000. It costs $100 a week, right? Do you know if you have $100 a week? That's the afraid to invest in yourself and unclear on your expense totals. If I say, what's coming up that you have to pay? Do you know? Or do you just kind of react to whatever happens, right? Do you feel like you're constantly taken by surprise? Well, this is going to take all of that and put it in one place. So let's talk about what this looks like. Um, but first, I want to mention something really important. It's critically important that we recognize that I'm not talking about a budget. I'm not talking about, what you need to allocate every single, month, or every single um, week for things like food or things like groceries, or that's the same thing. Things like, car maintenance or whatever. I'm not going to tell you that. You're going to tell yourself that, and then we are going to be able to use those numbers to determine precisely what your goals are. So this is more about goal setting. And this is more about getting you to a place where your expenses and income are stable so that you have a one amount to worry about, and that one amount covers everything. This, again, isn't about trying to tell you, oh, allocate this much for food or allocate this much for groceries, even though you might do that. Really, what we're doing is we are creating a situation you um, where you will be able to have a sense of precisely what you should have left over, regardless of where you're at right now. And it's based on the idea that you are biased or that you are naturally not seeing all of the aspects that make up your quote unquote budget because there are too many things to focus on, because they're due at different times, because you get paid at different times, or what have you. So, what we're going to create is information that looks precisely like this. You're going to have a weekly, amount of expenses, bi-weekly, monthly, and yearly. These are all the same amounts. They're just broken up for you so that you can see them in different ways. And the reason for this is that we want to be able to say, are you able to afford such and such a thing? Or how much is out of what you receive for pay is going toward paying for whatever we allocate here. So this is a really this is a really basic idea, but it's also really important because only 35% of us have this budget. And if you're watching this video, chances are either I've talked to you about a yearly budget and you're wondering specifically what you should have, or um, you're interested in one of the programs that I'm describing and you don't think you have enough money, and I referred you to this video, or maybe you're just coming into the group and you're trying to manage your money better, even your decisions better. One of the best ways to manage your decisions is to streamline them all so that you have one amount that's due or one amount that you're allocating for at some fixed period. Now, this spreadsheet shows us 4 different fixed periods, all representing the same general dollar amount. But what if you didn't have to worry about a whole bunch of expenses and only had to focus on one number? That's what we're getting you to, so that you can be freed up to be able to stop huffing and puffing, essentially trying to blow a brick house down, and just have the information on hand. It's very important when you try to make decisions that have to do with money. So I think I'm beating a dead horse here. Let's move on. I'm going to talk to you exactly about how to create a budget. And if you're watching this, by the end of this video, you should know precisely how much you have left over or should have left over at the end of every week or 2 weeks or month. And we can use this number to determine exactly how much you can contribute to improving your future. So what do? First, we want to list all expenses that come to mind. Most people do this already, right? You want to list out everything that you're putting money toward, everything that you can think of. Don't forget to include longer term things like car insurance or auto fees, bank fees, auto repairs. If you have any other kind of transport mechanism, repairing those. In general, you want to be thinking about things that are the most impactful to your life. And don't worry, if something comes up unexpectedly, um, what am I saying? If something comes up if something comes up unexpectedly over and over again, it's not unexpected. So we want to account for that too. I just spoke to somebody who had an unexpected car repair. And I said to them, wait, you're having an unexpected car repair. Haven't you ever had to repair your car before? And they said, yes. And I said, is it really unexpected then? So we want to consider that. Don't worry about getting absolutely everything down before moving on. We're going to cycle back through this a few times. Next, we want to determine our ideal period for income. So what is a period? It's like the monthly, weekly, biweekly. And so the reason we need to determine that is because first of all, if we get paid biweekly, it's easy enough. Like if you get salary, just plug in biweekly. But if we get paid irregularly, we need to make a decision about how often we are touching down or checking in on our money. Otherwise, we are going to end up being frivolous or having new things come up and reacting to them, putting out fires, which is what we're trying to avoid. So if we get paid irregularly, right? Like if we're an entrepreneur or a contractor, we want to use weekly. We want to do this process weekly. The only time we don't is if we get paid one large amount and then many small amounts. In this case, we're going to use the period or the interval from that smaller or from that larger payment. Use the period of the big payment. I don't know why I wrote the small payment. It's a period of a large payment. So now we're going to go through our list of expenses. For each expense, we want to gather some information. We want to gather the period. So some expenses are due every month, some expenses are due every quarter, some every year, some 6 months, etc. Oh, excuse me. We want to have an amount that's rounded to the nearest dollar. So that's important because we don't really need to be tracking cents, right? That just complicates things. So let's round up the expenses to the nearest dollar. Now that gives us another cool benefit, which is because we're rounding up, at the end of our calculations, we're gonna have overestimated slightly. So we might even have some money left over. That'd be great. We want to refer to the chart below in order to get the period amount for this expense. Remember, we just chose the period for income, and in order to do a proper calculation, we need those two periods to match. So when I scroll down here, you're going to see a chart. What we're going to do is multiply the amount of the expense by the number that I will guide you to, and there's some steps below. If you guys want this doc, by the way, just put doc in the comments. I'll reach out to you, I'll send it to you. If you have any questions so far, definitely want to hear about those. Those are the kinds of things that will fundamentally change how people receive this. So if this isn't clear, let me know what's not clear. I'll change it right on the spot. So when you're done listing out each expense and following that and doing that multiplication, which you haven't done yet, right? So I'm just showing you the process. I'm not telling you to do it. But if you multiply the amount of money by the number indicated in the chart, so by the number that we're about to scroll down to, if you multiply the amount of the expense by that number, then you'll end up with the amount of the expense adjusted so that, oh, excuse me, you'll end up with the amount of the expense adjusted so that it matches the income. But here's the thing, you can only hold so much in your head at once. So if you think you're done after 1 or 2 rounds of this, go for a walk, eat a sandwich, have a cup of tea, do something, do some jumping jacks, do some push-ups, something, because you're likely forgetting something. I have not met a single person in all of my time working with people that hasn't forgotten something. We want to continue this cycle until we are 100% complete that they have got everything they need. And then we want to add together all of those period amounts that we created in step 3 with each expense. We want to add them all together because this is the ideal period expense. What's a period expense? So our income comes in at a regular interval, and as long as we can afford that interval, um, the the let's hang on. Otherwise, yeah. Yeah, so as long as we can afford to put money out during that time, then we can count on that being, a period where we have money. Oh, excuse me. So if we want to convert the results of what I'm about to show you, which is that number, right, that represents how much we need to make every 2 weeks or every year, we want to wait. Yeah, we want to wait. We don't want to wait. I'm misreading. That's why I was confused. If we want to convert to another period, we want to use the income period and then the convert to column. So let's take a look at all this, right? We've got these 7 steps. Let's take a look. We want to multiply the expense amounts by this number. So this is the chart, right? If we get paid bi-weekly and we have a weekly commitment, then we're doubling that weekly commitment. If we get paid bi-weekly and we have a quarterly commitment, unless I work really hard, then we um, end up like having to do some other math because we can reduce the overall payment if we work say, or if we get paid say monthly and we have a weekly commitment, that's 4.3 times, 2.2 times, etc. So what these numbers represent are two things. One, the actual math equation that we're using in order to calculate the result. That's on here. But these numbers represent a sort of multiple that allows us to determine, just based on where things are on this chart, We can quickly evaluate cost versus value. We can quickly determine the caliber of people that we're interacting with, because if we have draining people, then we're ultimately creating a situation where we have more to focus on. We have to contribute more. This allows us to get a sense of what expenses or what obligations we have under what period, and then how to align those so that we're all speaking the same language across everything, across all commitments, across all expenses. We would ultimately, by the same language, I mean all of them are lined up precisely to the exact same interval. So we're going to start with our income column. We're going to say, here's how often we get paid. Like I set up here, if you're dealing with weekly, go to weekly. And then we are going to go to our convert to column and pick what we need to convert to. We're going to do this. We're going to multiply the expense amounts times whichever number comes out in the wash here, and then we're going to add them all together. So one thing that I want to point out is these squares here, where we have like this math equation and this symbol. So what we're doing is we're saying 1 divided by the result of 52 divided by 12. It's approximately this number. So if we get paid weekly and this is a monthly expense, we can multiply that weekly amount by this number. I will send you guys, I see some comments. You know what? I'm just gonna put the doc in the comments right now. There we go. So we are looking at these multiplication numbers to go against the expenses, and then we're going to add them all together. That will give us our total costs or our total budget per week, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. So one of the biggest problems, if we scroll back up, if we're constantly putting out fires, if we're constantly unclear about what our expenses are, if we're afraid to invest in ourselves, if we feel like we don't have enough, if we're unsure of what's due when, ultimately this converting everything to one amount is going to give us the clarity in one unified, one unified period, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly. So then if I say, okay, you want to work with me, it's X amount per month, you'll know that number precisely. If you're looking at the investment that you have to make and then breaking it up into parts, you'll know what you can afford. I've spent hours on calls with people trying to get these numbers, and it's not really that difficult. So by that difficult, I mean it might be difficult for them, but it's not, the end result isn't difficult to use. But there's one problem, right? So this chart's a pain in the ass. I don't want to necessarily have to multiply numbers and multiply things into charts. We can't hold all of this in our head. Like we're gonna need to walk around with this chart printed out. We're gonna need to walk around with the steps. That's a lot. Doing all of this is time consuming and exhausting. Like how long is this gonna take you guys, truly? Remember, we gotta go back and loop through all the expenses and gather all that information. We may not feel like you have enough because, well, you never really do. So you guys are welcome. I'm glad that some of you guys are tuning in right now. If you want this doc, I'll send it to you. But there's actually, if you're not Natasha or Sarita who are watching, but ultimately there's another offer that I have, particularly for those who are working with me right now, who have paid to work with me. And I'll get to that in a minute. That will speed up this whole process. So if you have, if you're either involved in the membership program or you're working directly with me, stay tuned. Don't go doing this. This is a pain in the ass. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like you can't hold all this stuff in your head. Um, Doing this all the time is exhausting. You don't feel like you have enough money because generally you never really do have enough money because you always want more than what you have. If you were to take all the things that you want and figure out, how much you would need to contribute every week or 2 weeks, you would find that you would be overextended. You would have too much going out than going in, even though you're using the same language. So that brings us to spending so much time and energy with um, this to do this that we run out of fuel. We don't really have fuel for much else. And another really important truth, if we always got the things we wanted, we would never have a reason to change. So here's the thing, don't be dissuaded if you feel like you don't have enough, because you never really do when you start to work in the places you're expanding to. What you want to do is feel like you have money available. You want to know how much money. And if it comes down to having to choose what to cut out so that you can afford more, well, we'll talk about that. So if you're a student of the academy, you're going to get all the methods and you're going to get all the secrets and you're going to get all of the techniques in order to stay confident even when you don't have enough. When you value something um, and it feels like you can't afford it, what are you going to do? So if you're a student of the academy, go into our mastermind tool and you'll see this lesson in that tool shortly. And in there, we're going to cover this stuff. We're going to also go over this process that's going to manage all of the things that you've forgotten. And it's going to manage all of the oddly periodic things like, for me, like my apartment insurance was a good example. We want to manage all the things that you forgot so that you, I guess, don't have to worry and be anxious about what you should have, could have, or otherwise, would have done. Of course, if you're a member or a student of the academy, you're going to get all the spreadsheets that are a part of that. You're going to get a one-to-one consultation with me to put this together. But if you aren't, we have the full set of steps here. The 7-step process, we're going to use these multipliers, we're going to apply them to a total, and then that's what we have for that period. So if you're in the academy, go check out the academy tool. You'll see this lesson in there. If you're not in the academy, maybe consider joining the academy, because in doing that, you have to ask yourself, how much is it worth for me to keep like doing all of this work over and over and over again? And maybe it's still not going to be worth it in a little while, but I can say certainly that um, there's a better way, and I give that way pretty much free of charge. Here's a video that describes it. There'll be another one. Guys, if you have any questions at all about this, like, I know that this isn't the simplest thing, but if you have any questions at all about this, then feel free to send me a message, or feel free to um, even send you my business page, because I can get on with you and we can figure it out. The most important part is this chart, because we want to ultimately, like, wouldn't it be nice if bills were due every week, every 2 weeks, and you got paid every 2 weeks, instead of you got paid one week, you paid a bunch of stuff that was behind, you don't have much left over, you're waiting a long time, you got paid another week. We want to be able to consolidate all of our decisions to one. So again, members, head on, or students, head on over to our mastermind tool. We're going to teach you how to facilitate this process for yourself in a much easier way.